Pride is the devil. It took a hold of EDC. Pride is the devil. Somebody get Steve Bisciotti. Pride is the devil. They tried to sign a bad QB. Why? I just don't. I'm trying my best to entertain myself, to distract how angry I want to feel. Because one of my favorite Jay-Z lyrics is when he said on Dead Presidents, when he said everything was all good just a week ago. Like, it feels like just yesterday we were chilling and the only thing we were worried about is receiver, and now we are sitting here on the brink of an entire team collapsing. The Ravens could possibly go down as the only team I've ever seen willingly go into rebuild mode. That's the type of impact Lamar Jackson makes. When you take him off this team, we instantly turn into a team that averages 12 points a game. And despite what a lot of people stuck in the past may think, you don't want to see them try to recreate that 2000s Ravens defense in 2023. You just don't want to see it. Because it is not going to be a pretty sight when you got this defense that on paper is lights out, but they're still getting beat every single week. And opposing teams are still averaging like 23, 25 points a game with us, and we're averaging 12. So it's something to keep in mind. Story just broke maybe like a day ago or whatever. It's been like a couple hours, saying the Ravens there was already rumors that they were interested in Baker Mayfield, and that was already embarrassing enough. But now an official story / report has come out saying that not only were they interested, but they actually made him like a real life offer. Like, they actually made him an official offer, and he declined it. It's already sad that you made Baker an offer, but it's even sadder that Baker doesn't even view you as a viable option. And I'm sure part of it is just like he may think about the fact that Lamar's still going to be here, and he knows he's not going to take the starting spot if Lamar's here. But it also could be him, as well as many other people around the league on offense who may be free agents. They're looking at this dumpster fire and they're saying, if they're willing to do this to Lamar, if we let Lamar go in the first place, if they're looking and they're saying, well, if they do that to him, there's no way they would do the right thing with me. There's just no way. You're not going to be able to convince people. You know, that's why when people put out this narrative over the years that receivers don't want to come here because they don't want to play with Lamar, I've always pushed back on that, because you've seen many of these players like Devontae Adams and many others constantly talk about how great they think Lamar is. It more than anything, people are really not that interested in joining the Ravens, and Lamar would be the only reason they would consider it. You take Lamar off the picture, you're in a bad situation. If you think it's hard bringing free agents here on offense with Lamar Jackson, what do you think is going to happen if you downgrade to Baker Mayfield? It's not a good look there. Baker Mayfield has played with the likes of Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry, and DJ Moore, and he struggled to get them the ball. And those are three people who are far more talented than just about everybody we got and everybody that we've had over the past 5 years. And he struggled to build any chemistry with them. So I don't know what the logic would be to bring him here, because even if he became the starting quarterback here, I would bet money that magically Andrews and Rashad Bateman would not even get their hands on the ball, because of that's just the tendency, that's just the pattern that Baker has showed in his career for whatever reason, that he's like the opposite of Matt Stafford at times. With Matt Stafford, whoever the best receiver is on a team, he is force feeding them the ball over and over again. like Cooper Kupp or Megatron or Golden Tate, whoever. But in general, I don't think it would be a very good idea to bring Baker Mayfield in, even as a backup. I don't understand why you would want to bring Baker Mayfield in as a backup when he's not at a point in his career where he's fully accepted the concept of him being a backup, which is why he signed with the Buccaneers. Tom Brady's gone. That whole team is kind of up in the air right now. He could definitely go in there on a 1-year deal and show if he still has anything left in the tank as a starter.
I put emphasis on it.
But it's very weird thinking of all the because to me this doesn't feel. Some people are saying that he must have this must be just to have him as a backup, and I'm like, that can't be the case because he's still young enough. Obviously, him and Lamar got drafted the same year. He's still young enough to want to still fight for his right to be a starter. Now, if he lost several times in a row, then obviously he would accept being a backup, but he's still at a point where he's still absolutely gonna expect to be a starter somewhere. Which is why it makes perfect sense that he went to the Bucs. But to me, this makes Baltimore look extremely desperate because I don't trust the Ravens at this point. I absolutely believe that they definitely did this as a sort of tactic in negotiations to say, hey, listen, we just signed Baker. If you don't agree to, what we're trying to do, we're going to go in this direction. And it didn't work out. But it's definitely interesting that this leaked right now. Now, from my perspective, this makes the Ravens look bad. I don't know if, I've seen some people try to argue this makes Lamar look bad. I can't wrap my head around how this would possibly make Lamar look bad. This makes the Ravens look desperate. That you're willing to sign a guy who, even though he was drafted the same year as Lamar, he at this point has 1 foot out of the league at this point. He in the past 2 years or so, he's been on this is gonna be his 4th team in 2 years. Just that quickly, things are kind of spiraling out of control for him. Now, and I don't got nothing against Baker. I don't think he's that bad of a quarterback, but why would you downgrade from an MVP to an inconsistent starter? It doesn't make sense. Also, there's reports saying that the Ravens have interviewed Anthony Richardson, who's one of the quarterbacks expected to get drafted in this next draft pretty high. Again, that also, in my opinion, makes the Ravens look desperate. I can't wrap my head around why you would want to do all this instead of just paying an MVP. When you look at Anthony Richardson, I'm not an expert on film. I'm not an expert on predicting who's going to be this or that coming out of these drafts. It's hard. For many positions, especially quarterback, it's hard to predict how far some of these guys are going to go. But one thing I am positive of is for a guy who's barely had any starting experience and barely had any attempts to throw the ball. He hasn't had a whole lot of reps coming into the league so far. You're going to have to be very patient with him. You're going to have to get him weapons, and you're going to have to help develop him, which I can't. Again, when have the Ravens really developed people on offense? When? What's a player on offense that the Ravens coaching said? People are comparing Anthony Richardson to Josh Allen. That's great, but a couple major things happened in Buffalo that turned Josh Allen from a bum to a superstar quarterback. One being they went out of their way to go get him Stephon Diggs. And then another being Brian Daboll, who was there at the time, helped develop him. We have nobody on this Ravens team, on this Ravens staff, who will be able to develop Anthony Richardson. And not only do we not have anybody who would be capable of really developing him, we don't have, clearly they're still right now, at least for the time being, they are still showing an unwillingness to go out of their way to get a premier wide receiver. So you getting Anthony Richardson it wouldn't make any sense. Because unlike Lamar, this is not a guy who has a bunch of experience coming out of college, who won a Heisman Trophy, whose record as a starter was 22-11, who threw for 3,500 yards and 30 passing touchdowns and like 1,500 rushing yards and like another like 10 or 15 rushing touchdowns. Like Lamar and Anthony Richardson are not the same player coming out of college. And fans could talk real tough as much as they want to. But if God forbid we end up losing Lamar and having to start over with Anthony Richardson, it is not going to be fun watching this young guy who may have the potential. It's not going to be fun watching him. It's not going to be fun watching him go through his growing pains while we lose a bunch of games. That's not going to be fun to watch. Y'all could talk as tough as y'all want to. If Anthony Richardson ended up in Baltimore, if that unlikely scenario actually happened, in my opinion, it would be the worst possible thing that could happen for him. Because he would not be going to a team that's going to develop him, and he's not going to a fan base that's going to be patient with him when he loses games, because he's not going to be able to be Lamar. I can't wrap my head around why pride is getting it's I guess the best way to say this is pride, which goes back to me singing the song in the beginning of the video. Pride is the only thing holding us back at this point. Steve Bisciotti's pride, Eric DeCosta's pride. Well, it's more so Steve Bisciotti because he's the owner and gets the final say so, as far as I know. Maybe it's a Belichick type of situation where he's letting EDC make the final choice. I don't know. I doubt it, but this front office and the pride of the people running this front office is having them consider every other possibility except simply paying their franchise quarterback. This is the most bizarre thing to watch. They've considered Jacoby Brissett. Now they're clearly considering trying to draft Anthony Richardson. They put out an offer to Baker Mayfield. All of this to try to avoid paying the person who can take you to a Super Bowl. Instead of trying to pay him, you're trying your best to show him, hey, we don't need you. When you absolutely do. You absolutely do. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Do you think these moves were desperate? Do you think it was a smart move to try to go for it? Do you think that they genuinely were only trying to bring him in as the backup, or do you think this was like going to be their backdoor way of trying to transition from Lamar? Or do you think it's like a combination of all these things?